Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. We're back doing these again because I kind of missed it. I know I said I was getting bored of it, but like when you stop doing something you kind of realise, oh actually I think I enjoyed this, or is it just that I just feel like I have the need to do it? But yeah, let's get into it. So the first book I finished, so this is like a January wrap up. I will do movies and TV shows in the same thing because I'm just going to run through them. First book I finished was Elvish by S.G. Prince. It was a bit rubbish. Basically, I don't know if everyone knows, but I'm obsessed with elves and I'm still on the hunt for a book that does elves well and then it isn't Tolkien, and so far I haven't been able to find one. So yeah, the hunt continues. It was an audiobook for free on Audible while I was getting like a half price credit for 3 months, so I was like, yeah, might as well. It was regrettable. Then I read a collection of poems by Roger McGowan called Summer with Monica. I basically saw it in the library that I worked at and thought, oh wow, is that inspired by Bergman's movie? Yeah, it kind of was, but like not in the way that you might think it was. It was alright, nothing to like kind of be like, oh my god, this changed my life. Then I finally finished The Unlimited Dream Company by J.G. Ballard. I've been reading this since November. Obviously I haven't done a November or December wrap up. I might just write things in the box underneath so everyone can catch up. But yeah, basically it was fucking diabolical. So boring, so repetitive, and it really should have been more interesting or at least shocking, but with Ballard you just become so desensitized to everything he's throwing at you that it's, yeah, it doesn't really mean anything. There's so much depravity going on that it's almost like, yeah, whatever, not really bothered. But yeah, it was so boring, that's the problem. I still think maybe Ballard isn't for me. Like I seek out strange narratives and things that are like, what? Shocking kind of thing, but just the execution is quite boring half the time. Like I found High Rise boring. I thought Crash was pretty decent, but I think I might prefer the Cronenberg movie. Then I read Lore Olympus, Volume 1, obsessed. My sister has been reading this like for a while and then she was like, oh my god, you need to read it, it's so good, and I was like, oh okay, maybe I will. I think it's so clever and very like modern, but using Greek mythology and like the figures of Hades, Persephone, Hera, Zeus and all those well-known characters to kind of drive a new narrative with beautiful, stunning illustrations. Obsessed. I think it is still being updated constantly on Naval Webtoon, so like part of me thinks, oh, shall I just catch up with it and then continue reading on Webtoon? Maybe, we'll see. And then the final book I finished in January was Welcome to Hwangnamdong Bookshop by Hwangbottom, and it was translated from Korean by Shana Tan. And I started reading this again, I think in like November or December. No, it was November. It's just like a cozy slice of life book that is about a woman that opens up a bookshop after basically having burnout in her corporate job, and it just follows the trials and tribulations and the different characters that come into this bookshop. It's very cozy, very comforting, and any bookish girl's dream is to open up a bookstore. So yeah, it was really nice to kind of dip in and out of, because it's very episodic. Like a lot of Korean literature is either short stories or made up of short chapters that feel episodic, and so this very much fit the bill. Yeah, so I definitely recommend that one if you need something cozy and a little bit self-helpy in a way, like not too in your face like books like The Alchemist or The Midnight Library, but it's just like enough to kind of be like, oh yeah, like you can consider this way of doing things will ultimately drag you down, so maybe you need to take a break, you need to like get a sense of community, slow down, just be in the moment, those kind of life lessons. Very enjoyable. So they're all the books that I read in January. In terms of movies, I think I only watched 3 movies and they were at the cinema, and 2 of them were like heartbreaking. One of them was surprisingly uplifting, and that was Poor Things by Yorgos Lanthimos, who is like one of my favourite directors working at the moment. If he's got a movie out, I'm gonna go and see it, and I've heard just so much hype since it came out. I think it was it at Cannes last year, and I've just been itching to see it, and then it finally came out in this country in January 2024. Hands down would have definitely made my top 5 list of 2023 movies if it had been released then. I thought it was so inventive, so magical, very fairy tale-esque, very playful in its direction. Like, there's just so much going on, and it owes to many rewatches to kind of unpack all the symbolism in how shots are done, the colour palettes, how for a long time it's in black and white because that's how the world is to Bella Baxter, until suddenly she's thrust out into the wide world and colour comes into the frame. Genius. Subtle things. Beautiful. Love it. Performances are fantastic. Like, as much as I love this performance from Emma Stone, I do think Lily Gladstone should be taking home the Best Actress award for historical, political, social reasons, as well as being one of the most profound performances of 2023 with her portrayal. I was floored by her performance in that movie and almost a little bit disappointed that it didn't focus more on her, but that we're not talking about that, we're talking about Poor Things. Gorgeous, sensational, feminist in my opinion, although a lot of people said it's misogynist because of sex scenes, and then it's just like, are we really going back to that antiquated time where we're like shaming women for being promiscuous? Yes, it's directed by a man, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's misogynistic. If anything, Bella Baxter as a character is a symbol of a woman finding her own autonomy and fighting the weasel men that try and steal it from her. She breaks free from her father who created her. She gets involved with a louse of a man and breaks free from him. It's all about her gaining self-awareness of her body, of her life, of who she loves, what she loves, and ultimately at the end of the film she is free. Is that not feminist? But yeah, I don't really care. Like, I enjoyed it. Then I watched perhaps the most harrowing film I've seen in the cinema in a long time, and that is The Zone of Interest, because it literally makes you feel sick to your stomach from the very moment it begins, with the discordant music soundtrack, just the black screen that just makes you feel uncomfortable because you're like, what's going on? Like, why is it taking so long to start? And that just builds up this weird feeling inside you that we all know we're going to see a movie about the Nazis that lived right next to Auschwitz, that the Hus family who literally planned the extermination of thousands, of hundreds of thousands of Jewish people. We already know it's going to be disgusting and horrible to watch, but that setup definitely makes it even more uncomfortable. And I loved how it was shot. So I did actually read an article, and apparently there were like hidden cameras inspired like by Big Brother, which you can see in some of the ways, like when I've forgotten the guy's name, but the man of the family, the diabolical Nazi man, is walking through the house and it shows it flick from different rooms, and it's like, that feels very like reality TV-esque, and then that almost plays into the fact that we're voyeurs in this family's life, and it's very methodical the way the cameras are very static and flick between each other, because it then also shows how methodical and sort of distant they are to the turmoil and depravity going on right next door. Like, they share a wall in their garden with Auschwitz. It's disgusting. It's so, just evil. But it's also like, just their everyday life is so mundane and just average. And you think these insidious, evil people are just so normal in a way, but also so subhuman in another way. It's very interesting. And other things like the sound engineering is fantastic, because you've got such a house full of life, children crying, playing, lots of chatter going on, and then next door you've got sounds of death, gunfire, screams, the sort of guttural bellowing of the furnace basically burning corpses, and just how these two things juxtapose each other, like a house full of life and a camp full of death. Again, the garden, their beautiful, well managed, well planted garden, and like all the close-ups of all the beautiful flowers, again a veritable Eden right next to hell on earth. I think it's genius filmmaking Will I ever watch this film again? No, I fucking won't. But it's something that's, I would say, is an important watch, and especially when you get to the end, spoiler alert, where Hoss, Nazi man, is just walking through a corridor, and then it flicks to modern day Auschwitz, and there's people just cleaning it, and then it just shows the piles of belongings and the devastation, but how the cleaners and the people setting it up for the tourists to arrive to see are desensitised to it. And then, like, what message does that tell you? That even something like this, if you see it so much, you become desensitised to it. So then, are we now desensitised to so much violence because we see it all the time? But yeah, like, it's very interesting, and not for the faint of heart, but if you want to feel completely uncomfortable and sick to your stomach, go see it. Yeah, like, I felt kind of down for a few days, I'm not gonna lie. And then, stupidly, I went to see, a couple of days later, All of Us Are Strangers, or All of Us Strangers. Talk about cry your eyes out. Beautiful film, very tragic, very sort of almost heartwarming in a way. If you know what the film is about, I don't really want to spoil it, but it's basically about this man who lives alone in this apartment complex. He's a writer, and one night he meets one of his neighbours who is also a lonely man in the apartment complex, and they strike up a relationship after a few sort of encounters with each other. And then meanwhile there's also this magical realism aspect to the story, where the main character inexplicably travels back but doesn't travel back. It's almost like they're ghosts in the house, or like there's some kind of magic that allows him to meet his parents before they died, but he's now an adult, and they acknowledge that he's an adult, and they talk, and he talks about being a gay man, and obviously his parents didn't know this about him, and they have a hard time coming to grips with it, but slowly they do. And it's almost like this cathartic release for the main character, because he's finally able to tell his parents about himself after they died tragically in a car accident. And yeah, so the story is basically about grief, about love, about human connection, and just the power of it all. And it was really beautiful but sad. Yeah, so they are the films that I watched in January. TV show wise, I watched Gyeongseong Creature, which is like a Korean drama set during World War II, when Korea was under the occupation of the Japanese Empire. And I found the show really quite fascinating in the way that it talks about the atrocities of the Japanese Empire. Like, there's some real horror stories that are true that happened. Like, there was this whole unit of Japanese soldiers that were testing on people in real life. I think it was in Manchuria, and some of the diabolical stuff they were doing. And in true American style, when they were captured, because they shared information with America about their tests and their results, they were set free. Disgusting. Like, read a news article or the Wikipedia page about Japanese occupation of East Asia, basically, and then look at the atrocities of the Japanese Empire in World War II, because it is foul reading if I tell you. But yeah, so this show basically delves into that and gives it a science fiction-y spin. So there's literally like this monster that they create through testing substances on people, and I thought it was really great. Like, it's like a kind of action blockbuster, but quite a bit slower and more heartfelt, I would say. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, it was enjoyable. I'm also currently watching a few other Korean dramas. So there's one called Marry My Husband, which is about a woman that goes back in time after her husband and her best friend, who are cheating on her with each other, kill her, and she gets magically transported back in time. She's given a second chance to live, and she's basically trying to stop the same thing from happening again. So she's going to try and get get her best friend to marry her husband so that she doesn't have to, so that she can take out the trash. It's really enjoyable. I would say it's a very like #MeToo series, because it's all about female empowerment going against pigs of society. Like the character's boss is an absolute misogynist. Obviously her future husband is a piece of trash. Like, oh, disgusting, like such an ick. Yeah, so it's quite enjoyable to see her gain the confidence to be herself and to not settle for a lazy, disgusting man who doesn't respect her. And then obviously, because it's a Korean drama, there's like a much nicer walk-in green flag of a man that is her new love interest, and yeah, it's really sweet. And he has a cat, like #the greenest of flags. In fact, he's so green he's a forest. And then also I'm watching another Korean drama. Why are they all coming out at the same time? Like, for fuck's sake. Called Dr. Slump, which is about two people that work in the medical profession, and they're basically going through burnout and career turmoil, and they reconnect. So they used to go to the same school as each other, and they were like academic rivals, and they reconnect as 30-year-old adults going through tough time of like just being depressed as fuck and kind of really struggling to live in a really kind of very harsh and driven world. So yeah, it's quite like, there's only been like 4 episodes so far, but it's quite heartwarming and a bit of like a comfort show, I would say. And then of course I've been continuing to watch Star Trek. Like, I am now halfway through season 5, and yeah, it's the best. What can I say? Like, I'm obsessed. I don't think there's anything else I've forgotten to say. But yeah, so that is my wrap up. Thank you for watching. I might continue to do these. But if there's something you want me to talk more in depth about, maybe like leave me a comment and I'll see if I can be bothered. Or I'll just like write it in the comments, maybe. If you also like want more stuff from me, then I don't know, like I'm posting a little bit more on Instagram nowadays, like book updates. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you that I'm currently reading The Name of the Wind. I started reading that in January. Why do I forget stuff? It was literally right next to me. But yeah, Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I am just shy of 200 pages in and I am obsessed. I think this is one of the most fucking fantastically written fantasy books I've ever read. Like, seriously, it's so well crafted. The writing's beautiful. The narrative structure of the story within a story, love that. Like the framing device of Kvothe retelling his life to a chronicler is very, very intriguing, and the way he talks about stories is also very intriguing. He's like, oh, there's like always a bit of falseness to a story. So you know, for example, that he's a bit of an unreliable narrator if he already tells you that there's not always truth in stories, that they're embellished. He's also like from a group of people, I've forgotten, I will make notes when I do my full review of this. He's like of a tribe of people that are known storytellers, so he's a bit more like embellishing the story perhaps, like he's grown up in a theatre troupe. The way things unravel just precisely at the right time is extraordinary. Like as I'm reading, I'm like, oh wait, is that person? Is this what's happening? Is oh, the Chandrian? Oh my god, what? And all this. Exquisite. Sensational. Yeah, so that's the final update. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being patient with me while I'm figuring out this whole YouTube thing. I don't know what I'm going to do going forward, but I feel like I do enjoy it, but I also find it a struggle. Such is life. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye bye.